Charleston celebrates its 350th anniversary this year, and to commemorate that, Charleston Pirate Tours brings you Charleston History Highlights. Hi, Eric with Charleston Pirate Tours. Well, it's Saturday night and it's dark, and we're in Philadelphia Alley in downtown. In my humble opinion, this is the most haunted street in the city. Now, I say that with some authority. I've been doing ghost tours for a long time, and I've had some weird things happen in this alley over the years. But no story I could ever tell would be any stranger than the one I'm about to share with you. On this particular night, it was a hot July evening. It was in 2008. I was working that weekend with my friends at Bulldog Tours. And my second tour of the night, I brought them into the alley, and this is where I planned to finish up my evening with them. And after I'd finished talking a little bit about the alley, I looked at my watch and it was 10:55. Now, I'm not one to cut somebody short, so I said, folks, we've got 5 minutes to kill, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm just going to name some hotels and bed and breakfast inns that are just kind of scattered around town we couldn't possibly get to on a walking tour. So I'm going to name these, and if I happen to mention the place that you're staying, if you'll let me know, then I'll be glad to tell you a story about where you're spending the night tonight. So I just started rapid firing some names of places like the Battery Carriage House Inn, the 1837 Bed and Breakfast. Well, nobody was staying in any of those. And then I mentioned the Embassy Suites on Meeting Street. And as soon as I said, is anyone staying at the Embassy Suites on Meeting Street? A couple standing right in front of me with their 2 children all looked at me, and the lady said, "Oh, mercy, that's where we're staying." I said, "Good. Let me tell you a story about where you're spending the night, ma'am." In 2003, there was a world-famous cardiologist by the name of Dr. Anna Fletcher. Dr. Fletcher is from Brussels, Belgium, and she's in Charleston attending a conference at the Medical University of South Carolina, and that's where she was going to stay while she was in town. Well, she checked into the hotel, had a good night's rest, went to the conference the next day. And after that day at the conference, she said she was so tired. All she wanted to do was just get back to the room and get to bed and get a good night's sleep. But you see, the first night she was there, she realized something. She said, when I turned out the lights, I was in a completely dark room, a strange room. And if I had to get up in the middle of the night, I would have been disoriented. So she had left the light on in the bathroom and left the door cracked. So she had a nice little swath of light that just went right across the foot of her bed to guide her way should she need to get up. So the next evening I should say, when she went back to the hotel, she got ready for bed, walked in the bathroom, turned on the light, cracked the door, gets into bed. Around 3 a.m. she said she woke up. Well, she just rousted up a moment, rolled over to go back to sleep, but then she noticed something as she rolled over. She said out of the corner of her eye, she said, I saw something moving just off the foot of the bed there. She said, I rolled back and looked off the foot of my bed, half asleep. And she said, much to my surprise and horror, stepping into the light at the foot of my bed was a young man in a gray uniform. I sat straight up in the bed. There's a man standing at the foot of my bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then she said, he leaned over to get a better look at me. But she said, as he leaned into the light, and I could see plainly his whole upper torso and his face and head, she said, that's when I knew he wasn't alive. Because as he leaned over, she noticed that half of his head was gone. Looked like it had been blown apart by something. So she screamed and leaped from the bed, started running to the door. And as she's running to the door, she said, he jumped between me and the door. And I literally ran through him. And she said, I got to the lobby screaming for help, begging somebody to come out. And some guy comes out of a back office, and all I can tell him is there's something in my room. I'm not staying in here. You have to get me out of here now. So he and some of the help go up to the room. I follow them and stand outside the door, wouldn't even go in. They're looking under the bed and the closet and the bathroom. Man, there's nothing here. She said, there was a while ago. I'm not staying in here. You got to get me out of here. So they kindly packed my bags. I only had a few things. Brought them to me, carried me across the street and put me in a nice room at the Francis Marion Hotel. They didn't bother to tell it was haunted too. Anyway, she said, I spent the rest of the night sitting up with every light on, just terrified I'd see that man again. Well, at that point, I turned and looked at the family, and I said, I hope y'all have a lovely evening there tonight. And that lady looked at me, and she said, we out of there in the morning. I said, oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to chase you out of your hotel room. And her husband starts laughing. He said, no, ma'am. No, sir. No, sir. We're leaving in the morning. We've been there all week. Our vacation's over. And I said, well, you should be fine for one more night. I said, okay. Well, that was on Saturday night. Now, I came into work on Sunday night. As soon as I walked into the office, one of the ladies working saw me come in, and she grabbed this piece of paper and started waving it at me. She said, would you please come get this piece of paper? There's a phone number on here. This guy called earlier, said he has to talk to you. He said he was on your tour last night. I said, okie doke. So I go to the office and dial this long distance number. A man answered the phone. I said, this is Eric Lavender. I gave you a tour last night. I understand you wanted me to call you. And this guy started laughing. He said, I am so glad you called. We were the people staying with you last night in the Embassy Suites Hotel. I said, oh my goodness, please tell me something didn't chase y'all out of the room. He said, oh, no. We had a wonderful time. We can't wait to come back one day. But we had something really strange happen, and we had to call and tell you about this. He said they got up that morning before daylight and packed their car and had been driving all day long. And he told me they got back home and lived in Tennessee. Basically, the way he described it, if you drew a straight line between Chattanooga and Nashville, about halfway in between is where they lived. He even was kind enough to send me an email the next day and laid that out in the email. But he said, we got home a while ago, walked in the house long down the road, dropped the luggage, decided to fix us something to drink. I'm fixing my wife and myself a glass of ice water. The kids are getting something out of the fridge. And I noticed our answer machine on the kitchen counter had one message on it. So I thought, well, I'll see who called while we were gone. So I hit the play button and went back to fixing the water. He said as soon as that message started playing, we all froze in our tracks because we just couldn't believe what we were hearing. It freaked out the kids. They ran to the room. My wife poured her water out and poured herself a stiff drink to settle her nerves. You got to hear this message we had waiting on us. Now, I'm sort of intrigued at this point. He said, you might not believe it. I said, I don't know. Try me. He laid the telephone by his answer machine, and he hit play. This is what immediately came over the telephone. Is anybody here staying at the Embassy Suites on Meeting Street? Oh, mercy. That's where we're staying. Good, ma'am. Let me tell you a story about where you're going to spend the night tonight. In September 2003, there was a world-famous cardiologist by the name of Dr. Anna Fletcher. Dr. Fletcher is from Brussels, Belgium. It's my voice on his answer machine from the night before, standing underneath the light. Now, after this played for a few seconds, he picked up the phone and said, what do you think about that? I said, I don't know. I'm wondering how that happened. He said, that's why we're freaked out. He said, you made an announcement last night at the beginning of that tour, which I used to do. This was a long time ago before we had these really fancy telephones we have these days. Everybody had those flip phones. And you said, folks, if you got your flippy phone with you, flip it out, flip it open, and flip it off. Just turn the thing off. I'll remind everyone of you turn your phones on at the end of the tour. That way it's not going to ring, interrupt the tour. So we all pulled out our phones and we turned off our telephones. I did. The guy I was with around me did. My phone was in my pocket, turned off. My friends, I was standing under a street light with 20 people standing around me, and I can promise you not a single soul had a telephone in their hand when I started that story. But I can assure you that my voice was waiting on them on their answering machine the following day, telling them the story of their hotel over 350 miles away from where we're standing right now. Is this alleyway haunted? Oh yeah. The Embassy Suites, we spoke of it in another video about it being the original campus of the Citadel. But you know, when they moved to that new campus along the Ashley River, they failed to do one thing. They didn't empty the building. Sometimes the ghosts of these cadets still pop up in there. This particular one has been seen by so many people, they finally named him. They call him Half Head. Happy birthday, Charleston.